All right, good afternoon. My name is Shea and we'll discuss how to move a company from Microsoft to Linux. Unfortunately, with the DoD, that's too big of an enterprise, but within my department at work, we should be able to move or transition from Microsoft to Linux. So with Microsoft, we have everybody's favorite tool. It's so widely available. It's become cheaper. It's only $200 for a license for Microsoft 10, or sorry, Windows 10. However, there's a lot of holes within their system. So with the cost, at least you get some free security updates, but with Linux, you have a lot of options between operating systems like Ubuntu or Mint that you can change on what you want to do. I've always been a big proponent for Linux because it's free. It's usually up to date pretty well. If not, use a third-party application. You shouldn't rely on Microsoft anyway. If we relied on Windows and Microsoft, we'd be sitting here with holes in our operating systems like Windows 7. And their main job is, because they're so big, is to push, more products out there. So they want a new operating system as much as they can. And we can see like their Windows Vista option, sometimes they kind of suck. So with Linux, you have some changes you can make. Oh, I don't like this Ubuntu version. I want to stay with this Ubuntu version. Or Ubuntu did something I don't like, so I'm going to go to Linux. And it's a lot easier to load those systems because there's not a required product key. And if worse comes to worse, you use a VM player to launch it. Now at work, what I've noticed is we started transitioning to Ubuntu on some of our programs because coding is a lot easier on Linux. And if you work in a company, you don't want to have to use command prompt or notepad or everything, because Linux is inherently easy to use when doing coding. Now, for a basic user, they don't need to do that, and you probably lock that down. But the option is there, and it's a little bit easier to use. Windows 10, when I'm sitting here trying to be an administrator on the network, I try to log in as an administrator, and it slaps me in the face saying, no, you can't do it. So some cons with Linux: it is free, which is good. You can consider that pro, you can consider it's con, because you're always waiting on those developers to be like, you know what, now's my time, I want to do it. There's not a lot of money in the game. Now with the Windows Microsoft area, there's a lot of hands in the pot and there's a lot of money. They have all the big, government contracts that are saying, yes, pay me, pay me, pay me. And they can slow roll stuff because there's not a real need. Now with Linux, you can say, all right, well, we're okay with that. But if you don't continually update the operating system and people find holes, especially in the world we live in with China and Russia dominating the cyber world, then it could really turn into a bigger con. And when I talked about the benefits of hardware, costs, and lifespan, I think the days are kind of gone where Dell held the big market of Windows. Oh, you had to buy everything proprietary. We should always use Dell, and the DoD's kind of transitioned away from Dell, and they've got a flavor of HP in there. And the DoD is never going to go away from that. Apple doesn't allow the stuff it needs. So, the hardware side, it's pretty much the same. You're not going to really worry about changing it too much. However, Windows does make the market a little bit harder because they're like, well, that computer doesn't work with Windows 10, so you have to get a new computer. So some stuff to look at is at least you're getting new equipment, but it's all a money-making scheme. And then we talked about software. $200 is pretty small. But for a small company, if you have 10 computers, $200, that cost might not be worth it, especially if the hardware is always hard to keep up. And Linux is just as good, if not better, for a small company because it is free. And your network administrator isn't going to really notice a difference. And then if they're looking at the hardware, they're like, okay, this is easy. And it's the same type of prompts out there. Especially with Google, the Linux community is very receptive, where the Microsoft community is not very receptive when asking for help. And then how do you upgrade? When do you determine you need to move to a new OS? With Microsoft, about every 2 years we see a new operating system. With with Linux, we can see quite a different changes. And how do you do it? Do you say, oh, I don't want to use Ubuntu anymore because of something I read on a forum, I want to go to Mint? Or do you say, hey, I want to upgrade every time a new upgrade comes out, which obviously isn't probably the best call because Usually the newest is usually the worst at first, so other people can find the bugs for you. But in conclusion, we really have to look at using Linux. And even if you start transitioning to Linux, you create another, marketplace. And it forces the other people like Apple and Microsoft to start fighting for that competition and making great products. Windows has historically just not been very good. It's good for the small users, but on the back end, it's not. It's very robust for people to try to keep up on. Oh, this crashed. I have to reload this. I have to reload this, and it's a long time consuming process. Where Linux, especially in a company that like where I work, where we're doing a lot of coding, why would you not use Linux? You can still get email. You can still connect to Exchange servers. Nothing's changed. You're just using a different operating system that's free and a lot easier to use. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, please reach out.